he must be thinking that those intermediate tires are going to give him far more time than he loses when he pits, or otherwise it would not be worth it. Or maybe not. It looks like he actually is front end plate damage. So maybe he lost enough downforce to justify coming in there. It will be interesting to see how much time he gains, though. Not sure what tires he's going to go on. He stayed on the wet tires, so he does not think it's dry enough for the inters. But looking at the track, I'm honestly not seeing a lot of puddles here, so I think it is possible that the inters could be a faster tire. Of course, they are a far more confident tire than we see in real life in-game, but obviously the inters are still going to be far faster. In the back, we see the yellow flags out. Not sure for who. Looked like a car going slow, as we have Marino, who spun around just into Sector 2.
Spun around and I believe resets. We're back live. Sorry, I had a little bit of an issue with the live stream now, but now we're 100% live and all good. Thank you for covering. Indeed, so weather conditions could be evolving as we're going through here. There's already 3 laps down. Full wet conditions obviously is going to slow the pace of the race here and trigger maybe chances are, when looking at the time here, it could potentially go over 10 p.m. onto Division 2 as well because of the slow race that we're getting in for the sprint, which is additional time we're taking here. Kyle Blevins 4 seconds ahead of his teammate with Ethan Patel. You were saying earlier it was a tight race between, if I'm not mistaken, Mercedes and Ferrari. Is that right, Seb? For the constructors?
Mercedes and Red Bull.
And Red Bull
has 522 points. Mercedes has 521. So Mercedes needs to be looking to at least get one car ahead of Ethan Patel and try and keep it more even. Obviously, P1 is going to generate more points than the positions behind. But they want at least one car ahead, at least so they can try and keep that pressure on in the race. They don't want Ethan Patel to be able to sit there and play rear gunner. Of course, Ethan having a 4-second, or Cal having a 4-second gap to Ethan behind. Ethan Patel having 5/10 the Wild Fury, so Wild Fury needs to try and find that little bit more pace. Following has been known to be hard here. I'm not quite sure how it is in these new cars and in this game. As Eric McNerney in P5 managed to get a 3-second penalty, so that puts him even with Labib behind, who will be looking to try and build a gap to Try behind him, but Try is sticking behind him and has been doing so well. I think he knows that he just needs to keep it behind Labib, and he's going to be making up at least one position here at the end of the sprint, which is going to be huge going into the feature race.
Yeah, we're expecting drivers to get a lot of 3-second time penalties here. The first sector is a really tight and windy kind of sector, and you want to have the cars planted to the ground as much as possible. Given the current wet conditions, is making it a little bit complicated. Currently, both Mercedes sitting P3 and P4. I don't know if one of them are preferring to another, because Klinsmann's trying to keep up with Wildfire. Actually, Wildfire is going to do as much as possible. He's within what normally would be DRS there for Ethan Patel, but DRS obviously is disabled given the current conditions. Freddy Rizal, who's dropped down to P20, so I believe he had damage and pitted earlier. He had an incredible start to the race, got P2 for a moment. Unfortunately, dropped it and is now trying to battle all the way back, and is side by side with Kushi.
You're not going to be able to hang it around the outside in the wet like that. He does have the inside line now, so he did well to keep it in. And
there goes the overtake on Kushi. Yeah, most definitely.
Had to prove me wrong.
That sector is quite a tricky one, and going on the outside on one corner gives you the inside advantage on the next corner, which is where some interesting overtakes can happen if you do it well. But it's important that both drivers respect each other. Freddy almost had another moment there, got a little bit too early on the throttle and nearly lost it, so he's got to be careful. And I see Cole Cummins dropping down. I think he went into the pit, so I don't know if he's changing his tires. He's going for the inters. I don't think I noticed any wing change.
No, I have a feeling the inters are going to be faster here. If we look at the track, you're not seeing a lot of puddles. In this game, the track definitely develops quick, but I'm not certain that's going to give him enough pace to make up 11 seconds and then some to at least make P19.
It could be an interesting strategy, because we've seen multiple kind of races this season. I'm thinking about Belgium, where in a matter of like a lap or 2 laps and tops, wets and inters were completely bunched up. And the Inters were finally got a lot more pace there, so that's something that we could potentially see in Coda. But there's only 5 laps left, so if some drivers are thinking about going the Inters, it's either now or keep on the wets until the very end of the race, and we'll see how Cole Cummins catches up. He's just about 14 seconds away from Christian P19. Let's see how much he could close that gap.
Started 11 seconds behind, so it looks like the Inters might actually just be a slower tire. Obviously, they do still need to warm up, but honestly, with that 11-second gap, he needed to be making up time as soon as he came out. You know, he didn't have a ton to lose, but also Williams in the combined constructors is like 30 points behind Haas, so it's very important for them to be making points over those drivers now, and he's managed to put himself behind Corsair, so this might not be a gamble that ends up paying off.
Just watch Fish Dick will do an overtake on RNG and the Alfa Romeo in turn 1. So that's both AlphaTauris and P8 and P9, just one behind each other. Going through Sector 1 here, you got Kaiser's closing the gap with Aaron there. So there's a 3-car battle from P8 to P10 currently. Or sorry, P9 to P11, I should say. Currently, these drivers are trying to keep it up with each other. Klinsmann's in front of Wildfury. We saw the other way around for the Mercedes, and now he's going to try to keep up with Ethan Patel. He's got 6 tenths behind the Red Bull driver currently.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of position changes for a wet race, especially at a track like Coda. It's very technical, and to make overtakes here, you can get lucky into braking zones, but with it being a bit hard to follow into the long straights, you really need to try and hang it around the outside of other drivers and just put yourself on the apex of upcoming corners, as we have the Haas driver of Corsair coming around. Cole Cummins will be coming up on him.
Yeah, there was a Sector 3 flag there. It looked like it was potentially maybe a Red Bull or a Mercedes, but it looks like it's all right over there on their end. So currently, if you're looking at drivers who really gained a lot of positions already in the sprint race, I was mentioning the AlphaTauris earlier. So Labib's gained 5 positions in this Ferrari. He's currently sitting P6, and both AlphaTauris, Gibbs gained 7 positions, is now sitting P8. So that's gonna get him a couple points there. RNG is up to 8 positions and sitting P10. I believe P10 is the last points winner for the sprint race. And Flozy P9 and Haas and P11. That's something you see very often in regards for the Haas, no matter what division. So that's good for them.
Well, I felt like that was really targeted.
Freddie Rizal, I think, is spun out again. So he's dropped a couple positions and is now sitting in P18. Dropped 2 positions to Hukic and Kushi once again. So Freddie got a great start into the race, but currently the wets are not smiling at him whatsoever, and that's a race he's going to want to forget. And he will have the chance to forget that race, because he'll be able to start from the back of the pack next race. And hopefully, he's most probably praying for no rain currently to be able to start from the back and try to get back up front.
Yeah. And for the record, Cole Cummins did not manage to overtake a driver who lost their entire front wing in Sector 1, so the Inters are definitely just staying the slower tire on track today.
With 3 laps to go, so the lead is still Kyle Blevins, who's dominating this track right now, almost nearly 8 seconds ahead of his teammate Ethan Patel. Ethan is doing his best to keep Klinsmann and the Mercedes behind him, and Klinsmann is doing everything he can to catch up to him, but currently he's sitting 1.1 seconds away from him. Wildfury is about half a second away from him, so the Mercedes and the Red Bull driver, Constructors Championship battle you were mentioning earlier in the race, we're seeing it there, but currently it's Red Bull that's got the upper hand, and by far.
Yeah, so just doing some quick math here. Looking at the sprint race points. With this, if they end in the positions they are now, Red Bull's going to end with 537 points at the end of the sprint race. And Mercedes is going to end with 532 points. So that is going to give Red Bull a pretty big advantage going into the feature race, all things considered.
Another driver who's not having really the best times right now, it's Corsair and the Haas and P20. he spun around and he's looking at Cal Blevins in his mirror currently. He was about to lap him on this sprint race, so that's going to be a race to forget also for him. Ethan Patel has dropped a couple of, almost actually half a second to Klinsmann. So Klinsmann's going to try to maybe get on DRS a little bit there on the straight line and try to overtake Ethan Patel, but that seems like the Red Bull has a lot higher straight line speed than the Mercedes. So that's not going to happen right now, but it was at 1.1 just a lap ago, and now we're looking at a 6/10 advantage for Ethan Patel, and that advantage could very quickly melt away depending on what could happen. Ethan is going to have to be really careful on how he drives this car currently.
Yeah, and looking at it, all three of these drivers have plenty of battery, so they probably want to start thinking about using it, getting towards the end of this sprint race. So we only have 2 laps left as Ethan Patel gets a little moment of oversteer just coming to through the penultimate corner. Yellow flags out for a Ferrari in Sector 3. They're back up to speed.
Yeah, it was a very short moment there for Ferrari, but now Labib's looking at Gibbs right behind him, the AlphaTauri driver, who's having quite an interesting race, and is looking at the rear gearbox of the Ferrari, and he's there on the ERS. He's gonna maybe try to thinking about making a move down on turn 1. I think he's gonna play it safe, and he does. So Labib's going to keep his lead, keep the position ahead of Gibbs, but that's a battle that could develop going down into the next main straight. I think these drivers are gonna keep it safe and keep it calm and collected through the whole Sector 1. This is not an area where you want to be trying to overtake a driver. And as I'm saying that, Gibbs is all over and almost thought about making a move on Labib for P7, and he's trying to do the switcheroo kind of moves there. Labib's trying to defend. He doesn't have as much pace as Gibbs did through the whole Sector 1, so I think Labib might have just a higher top end speed.
Yeah, and I think Gibbs honestly does not want to overtake here. If he looks at Labib's delta and Eric McNerney, which he can't see, he sees it's 5 seconds. There's no way he makes that up in 1 lap, and what he does by trying to overtake Labib is risk losing a ton of position, and that means that in the feature race, he could be starting all the way from the back. Labib having a 3-second penalty, I should clarify, means that Gibbs does not need to overtake him to make up that position, and he will not gain it to Eric McNerney ahead. So
most definitely, I think maybe Gibbs is thinking about overtaking Labib to get to within 3 seconds of Eric McNerney. Jumping from P8 to P6 would be quite a feat for this driver, and he'd be very proud of that. I think we have a Williams on the intermediate tires who's stopped on track that I thought would be Cole Cummins, but no, that looks like it's a hookage. Completely lost it.
Yeah, I guess Hokage must just have stopped, and hopefully he didn't break his wing, because it looks like he wasn't able to come back into the pits.
There's another Sector 3 flag. That looks like it's Marino, who's also got to handle a 5-second time penalty. Down to P13, and that's time penalty. He was far away enough from Rigraff, and now Rigraff got within that 5 seconds. So that's going to cost him a position there.
Now that we're on the final lap here, Klinsmann is right behind Ethan Patel. He is not managing to hang it as close as he needs to, but he's just going to be dumping his battery.
And so will Ethan Patel. Both drivers have way enough ERS there. Ethan to defend himself, and Klinsmann is going to try to get it to work for him. Oh, is that the Ferrari that's gone around in the back? I believe that is Rigraff. Yeah, Rigraff's lost it in Sector 1, going down turn 2. We're used to seeing Rigraff a lot higher up on the standings so far.
Yeah, not a good race. The setup could just not be working in the wet. Not quite sure what's going on there, to be honest.
So this is a 20 corner track here, and we've got Kyle Blevins going out turn 20, and he is going to take the checkered flag on this sprint race. That is 10 points extra for Cal. Winner of the USA sprint race, Ethan Patel manages to defend both Mercedes off his rear, and he will come in P2, Klinsmann in P3, Wildfire in P4, and Alpine of Vitry in P5. And now we've got some penalties with Eric McNerney and Labib, and I believe that's gonna keep it status quo. We're going to see how it goes for them. So Eric McNerney in P6, a great drive by the McLaren driver. Labib, who's going to lose a position to Fitz Dickwell. So Gibbs gave up a position, or maybe lost a position, we didn't see it, to his teammates. That is Fitz Dickwell in P7, Labib in P8, Gibbs in P9, Floozy the Haas driver in P10. And then RNG P11. The next Alpine driver was maybe hoping to get a better race than that. Finishes P12. Marino, despite his 5-second penalty, I believe, remains in P13. And that is Rigraff and the Ferrari. So not great results for the Ferrari drivers. They'll be looking to do a lot better there during the actual race. Cushy P15. Aston Martin, Freddie Rozelle, and Kaiser, both drivers that are known to be a lot quicker than this. Not a great result for the sprint race. They'll be looking to get better results for the full race coming up soon. Both Williams and rounded out by Corsair in P20.
Mercedes will be happy that Kaiser stole that fastest lap point from Cal. Going on the inters at the very end, looks like the track was just starting to cross over. Another thing I want to shout out is Itchry, P5 in the Alpine. That's a very good result for them.
Absolutely.
So the order in our sprint race is Cal P1, Ethan P2, Klinsman P3, Wild Fury P4, Itchry P5, Eric McNerney in P6, Mr. Dickwell in 7, Labib in 8, Gibbs in 9, Flosy in 10, then Aaron G from Dan, Marino, Rigraff, then Cushy, Freddie Rozelle in P16, Keisler in 17, Cole Cummins, Hokage, and Corsair in P20.
And in just a couple seconds, the actual race, and we don't know any weather information so far, so maybe that would be something we could get.
It's meant to be dry.
All right, we're going to see that in just a minute. So no formation lap once again. 50% race. And it definitely looks like it's bright and sunny.
So, it'll be interesting to see if any drivers ended up being faster in the wet than they are in the dry.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely possible, whether that's setup risks they took or just the way their skill ends up falling.
Yeah, given the situation, that would probably explain why there's a lot of spins out during the sprint race. A lot of drivers kept their dry setup for this race, which is the most important one.
Yeah, I mean, this race is the full 35 points for the win. The last one gave you 8 points for the win. So, I don't know, my math isn't great, but I think this one is more important as the 5 lights come up.
Yep, 5 lights are up, and once again, it's going to be a double Red Bull start, and that's a great start once again. And looking from Klinsman's point of view, he's got a great start up there, and both Mercedes are just have taken over the Red Bull of Ethan Patel. He's completely dropped and botched up his start. Out of turn 1 is Cal Blevins, followed by Klinsman and Wildfury. Ed Schreit gains a position, and Ethan Patel's dropped down 5 positions. What a terrible start from him. The Alfa Romeo, I believe that is RNG, who's lost it in the turn 2 there. So far, these drivers are already packed up in a train and really keeping it nice and tidy so far. Labib's gained 3 positions, started in P8, and is now in P5 in the Ferrari. So that was the start he was looking for. Other drivers were looking to get a good start. Freddie Rozelle and Keisler, P11 and P12. Rigraff also gained a couple positions there. And we're looking at Freddie Rozelle, I believe, who's gained another position down the straight. So the setup differences will be mostly noticeable here down the straight. Are you going down for a high downforce to be fast around the rest of the track, or high top speeds here to do some overtakes? Freddie Rozelle is already all the way in the back of that McLaren. Definitely had a way better braking point. That's the Haas of Flosy going around there. I don't know if there was maybe a contact with Ethan Patel, who's desperate to keep position there. Flosy's a little bit wide on the track. Side by side, these drivers were going just a moment ago. Freddie Rozelle now is sitting in P9. He's gained 7 positions so far. So we were just talking about how in the sprint race, He didn't have a great race and was probably keeping his setup, his dry setup, and that's where he wanted to do his best. And already in a single lap, he's gained 7 positions. What a masterwork by Freddie Rizal.
Yeah, and I mean that's what he needed. I think we're obviously seeing that he just wasn't getting on well in the wet, and now that we're back in the dry, he has some more pace.
Eric McNerney is good. Is right up on the gearbox of Ethan Patel. Ethan Patel is struggling with his Red Bull currently. If you look at the tires currently, though, so certain things could explain themselves this way. So Labib's gained positions because he's currently on the soft tires. Eric McNerney and Freddie Rizal are battling it out, and not in corners where you'd expect them to be fighting it out. Ethan Patel is on hards as well, so that means he's fighting off 2 drivers behind him, or even 3, because they got medium tires. So definitely the medium tires are going to have more performance for them currently, and that is until the hard tires get up to temp.
Yeah. Well, and those hard tires are still going to need to wait on the mediums to get a bit of wear to have a better delta, but if you can hang on, it should put you in a better position once you get into some clean air. Of course, a lot of these guys in the front probably aren't going to have clean air, a lot of them starting on the hards, but Labib behind starting on the soft, so an interesting strategy there. Not sure what the play would be. I don't know that you can make the hards, or the hards and the softs last long enough to work together. He might have been hoping to see a safety car, but those seem to be a rare appearance these days.
Yeah, most definitely. Freddie Rizal diving down in the last corner on Eric McNerney. And he's going to overtake the McLaren driver. And now he's looking ahead at Ethan Patel for P7. So that's another position taken for the Aston Martin driver. All of that being done. No DRS. So now DRS has just been activated for the drivers. And he's on absolutely wild pace currently. He is going to be looking at overtaking Ethan Patel as soon as possible. And from there, there's quite a gap that's been formed between Fitz Dickwell in P6 and Ethan Patel in P7, despite both of these drivers being on hards. So Ethan, it's really showing how he's struggling with his car right now. I don't know if if it's a setup issue or when his tires get up to temperature, he's going to be better. You can see Freddie's got the pace, and he's about to overtake him with the DRS. There's nothing Ethan Patel could do with that.
And as things stands right now, if Cal wins this race and Mercedes gets a 2-3, they need Ethan Patel to finish in P9 or lower to win the Constructors' Championship here in D3. The end right now would be 588 points for Red Bull versus Mercedes with 585. Of course, if Cal gets the fastest lap, they'd still need Ethan Patel to finish in P9. So they're going to be praying that Eric McNerney can get P9 here, or sorry, P8, and keep it that way.
Yeah, the Mercedes driver is sitting P2 and P3. Would be a double podium for them if the race would finish as it is now. But it's actually just started, so anything could happen. And already drivers are getting themselves a couple penalties there. That is Labib with a 3-second, Marino and Flosy with 3-second penalties. And it's only 4-lap-old races. So we know this track with the track limits. It's maybe a little bit... it's a little easy to get just a single tire over the white line, and the game doesn't like it, so that smacks you with a penalty. So these guys in 4 laps have done it at least 3 times so far. You want to be careful because those penalties could be extremely valuable till the end of the race.
And of course, the earlier you get a penalty, even if it is, a bullshit penalty, a bull crap, I'm gonna get fined, aren't I?
Or fired.
Yeah, well. Ugh. Probably shouldn't even drawn attention to it, but it's too late now. Anyway, if it's not a real penalty, if you have to serve it in the middle of the race and you can't prove that you didn't, then the stewards can't do anything about it. So, if you're gonna get those penalties, you want it to be way later in the race.
Yeah, most definitely. Labib's, speaking of penalty, Labib's sitting there with a 6-second penalty, so tough luck for him. He's going on the soft tires, and that strategy has not paid off so far. He's gained some positions on the start, but it didn't allow him to gain much pace, and as much as he's trying. Now he's lost all that gain time because of those penalties. These drivers got to be careful, and once you start getting those penalties or you get those warnings, you end up driving a little bit more carefully. That might be affecting your pace as well, and that's
Well,
affecting your overall race.
hate to interrupt, but I don't think Labib is driving any more carefully because it looks like as we were on board with him, we watched him exceed the track limits
Yep.
again. I'd bet money that was track limits.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. So far, Cal Blevins, once again, he's got a gap of 2.3 seconds to Wildfire in the Mercedes, followed closely by Klinsman and It's Shrine, the Alpine, who's having a grand time out here in USA. As much as in the wets as on the dry, he's been doing great so far. Labib's followed in P5, but that's going to dwindle down a little bit with the penalties. Fitz Dickwell in P6 currently. And Freddie Rizal, who's actually closed the gap. Or speaking about that gap after he overtook Eric McNerney and Ethan Patel. Ethan Patel actually dropped another position to Eric McNerney in the McLaren. So he's really dropping down. And he's looking behind him. He's got another Aston Martin on his rear. Freddie Rizal, he's closed the gap and is in DRS range. He might be making a move on Fitz Dickwell. He's on the inside and he's keeping it. It's wheel to wheel. So far, both drivers are keeping it clean, and they're doing a great job at that. Fitz Dickwell's trying to keep it on the outside, tries for the little switcheroo, the outside-inside, and that's not working. And that's Freddie Rizal, P6.
And we saw Freddie make that same move in the wet. He sets up beautifully for the next corner in that section of the track.
That is 10 positions gained for him. Incredible.
Yeah, and Ethan Patel will definitely be mad that both of those drivers didn't manage to take each other out. I'm honestly not sure if Ethan Patel is aware of what he needs to do right now, where he needs to finish with the constructors. His engineers probably need to make the decision whether they tell him or not what their target is.
Yeah, Ethan Patel is really feeling the pressure currently, and I don't think those hard tires are really fitting for him currently. Kaiser's crawling all over his back already. So he's not looking at the drivers ahead of him, but mostly defending and looking at the drivers behind him. And that is not a way you want to be driving. I think the only thing that's working for him so far is that he doesn't have penalties like a couple drivers out on the grid. And he could at least be happy that he's got DRS. He's within DRS range, I believe, of... yeah, he's just within... Oh, actually, did he just drop out of DRS? We're going to find out if he has DRS on Eric McNerney, because if he doesn't, that means Kaiser's going to be in DRS range, and that's going to put him in trouble. No DRS for Ethan Patel, so that means the Aston Martin is going to be catching up to him a lot more, and probably won't do the overtake this lap, but next lap will be a lot closer to him and be able to make a move.
Yeah, so I think it is important to note that Ethan Patel is on the hard tires here, so he is suffering a little bit from tire delta. I'm not sure that it answers all the pace with how well he was against the Mercedes. In the sprint race, I mean, looking at Klinsman and Try, who's also on the hard tires, who did fine, but Ethan could be struggling on them, but that means we could also see him come back and really go well on the medium tires.
Just looking back a little bit, we've got Rigraff in P11. He's trying to defend off of Marino in P12. There's a Sector 3 flag, and that looks like the Williams, I believe, of... and I'll make sure to pronounce it properly this time. Hokage, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah. Hey, Labib's just come into the pits. He's fitted the hard tires, so it looks like he's trying to make it to the end of the race, or praying for a very late safety car.
Yeah, so that's going to be the soft-hard strategy, which is something we've seen once before, and I'm also noticing an Alfa Romeo on the back P19. RNG is also on the soft, so that's just an alternative strategy. You know, most of the season we've seen strategies of hard to mediums or mediums to hards. Now the soft to hards or the reverse of that is also potentially a strategy. Hasn't always worked out great for them, so... Curious to see how Labib's going to do that, but once again, his penalty is going to be dragging him down by the end of the race.
Yeah, and RNG did not start on the softs. He moved on to them, so if I had to guess, he might actually be the case of nothing else to lose. Let's gamble and see if he can make some time back. Yeah,
exactly. He's on 5-lap old hard softs, and I don't know this track how long the softs last, but I'm not expecting them to be very performant for that many laps. Do you have an idea how long they last?
No, but I do know that the soft tires are not a race tire in this game.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Codemasters hates fun. But, you know, it kind of varies. Some tracks you'll see it. I know at, like, Portimao, the soft actually is a race tire, so it's possible, but the game doesn't predict it, I'd be surprised.
Yeah, exactly. So Freddy Rizal is gaining a lot of time currently on Itchrai and the Alpine. So he's looking at P4, and at the pace that he's having currently, he could be looking at a podium position. He's still got 20 laps to go. Let's not forget, this driver started on the back of the pack. I believe it was in P17 or P16. So all the way in the back, and you could see it in Sector 1 quite visibly. That's where he's gaining a lot of time. I don't know if it's his setup that offers him a higher stability in the Sector 1. Don't think he's in DRS range of Try just yet, and that's going to be good for the Alpine driver, given the fact that he's currently under the DRS of Klinsmann and the Mercedes. Speaking of Klinsmann, makes a move for P2 on Wild Fury.
That could have been a planned switch. If I do imagine, Wild Fury probably started to lose pace on the mediums right now compared to Klinsmann. I'm hoping that Mercedes knows their situation right now and is making good team play. They desperately need to keep Freddy Rizal behind. I don't see a way that Ethan scores little enough points if they don't keep that 2 and 3 by the end of the race.
Yeah, and Ethan Patel, speaking of him, I think his hard tires are starting to work up a little bit, and maybe we're at the cross lines here with between the hard performance and the medium performance. He is all over the back of Fitz Deckwell, but followed closely by an Aston Martin, so not an easy situation to be driving in. You want to overtake a driver in front of you, but you don't want to slow yourself down while doing so that the driver behind you is able to do the overtake. And that is going to be done in turn 1 here. Ethan Patel dives down the corner. Dickwell's going to try to do a late braking, but he's not able to do that. That's a clean overtake for the Technic Speedy in the Red Bull. And that puts him up in P7.
Yeah, now we're not sure what's going to fare better, the medium or the hard tire strategy. Of course, the Mercedes have split their strategy, but I'm not sure that Ethan has enough pace tonight to make up if starting on the hards was not the play, and the mediums are going to end up being faster.
Freddy's going to be on the move here once again, and it's got a Try. Try fell off away from DRS zone from the Mercedes in front of him. So that's Freddy Rizal overtaking the Alpine driver for P4 now quite cleanly. The Alpine driver is going to try to stick with him. Freddy's making those medium tire work so far, and he's doing it in really great fashion. And now he's looking ahead at Wild Fury, who's also on the medium tires, who's dropped back from Klinsmann earlier, where both the Mercedes drivers did the switch.
Something to note, though, the Mercedes drivers have plenty more battery than Freddy Rizal does, Freddy being only on 10%. Shrai is also on 25, which does mean that he will have an ERS advantage to Freddy, so he could be overtaking him here.
Could be doing so right around turn 20, so keep an eye on that. And if I'm looking, yeah, that's his rear wing open. So Freddy was able to, while overtaking Try, who didn't have DRS on the Mercedes, was able to close the gap close enough to the Mercedes already, and now is sticking his Aston Martin within DRS range. So that's what allowed him to defend himself against the Alpine driver right on his rear. And that gap between the Aston Martin and the Alpine is just, again, is that you could see it really quickly. That gap is forming there. So indeed, the ERS is going to be on the Mercedes side to defend themselves. But with that pace, are they going to be able to do so for very long? That's what I'm very curious to see.
Yeah, I mean, the medium tires have to be falling off at some point. Obviously, that won't hurt Freddy when it comes to racing Wild Fury, but Klinsmann can still get away. Of course, Wild Fury still needs to hold position here, at least after the pit stops, and make P3 in this race. It's absolutely vital for Mercedes if they can't manage to scrape a win here.
Absolute pace. So that's a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags on Marino. I believe those yellow flags in the further back, and Marino's sitting P10, and he's just about to pit too. So we were talking about penalties earlier, that those 5-second penalties you could serve when you pit, and Marino's gonna have to serve it for ignoring yellow flags there. That means he won't be able to contest it with the stewards later for an unfair penalty.
Yeah, another thing to note is I've just gotten word that Freddy is only lapping 1/10 slower than Cal here. Of course, he should be on a slower tire by now. So we could see Freddie actually fighting for a win here. He doesn't have the biggest gap to P1. And that could still keep our constructors battle between Red Bull and Mercedes interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Freddie's got a 5.1 gap to the leader currently. So with just about 17 laps to go, he's got a chance. And Kyle, so far, I mean, he's surprisingly used his ERS a little bit more than I thought. He's out there in front, just like he was in the sprint race and throughout most of the Division 3 racing, as I've noticed throughout the season so far. So really dominant drive by this driver who's we've seen Cal go in Division 2 and Division 1 even and fighting for wins wherever he goes, and that's the kind of driver he is, proving it in Division 3 as well.
Yeah, interesting though. Cal does need to be careful here, of course. At some point, he could end up racing Freddie Rizal here, and I think Red Bull needs to keep that in mind, that he could really throw a wrench in their plans.
Oh, noticing Marino and Kaiser fighting it off for P10 here. So that's Kaiser that's overtaken Marino. Looked like a clean overtake right after the back straight. Great clean side by side driving, but clearly the Aston Martin had a better pace than Marino, and Marino's gonna have to concede. Oh, and that's the Aston Martin that spins around and he loses it. So that's Kaiser who's completely lost it. Just after making the overtake, this rear just completely spun off, and that's the Kaiser who's dropping down to P14. So those 10-lap-old medium tires are maybe starting to show the signs of wear now, and we'll see which driver is going down in the pits first, and that is Kaiser. So he's just got that spin. He's cooked his tires, and he's going down in the pits. Rigraph is doing the same. So a lot of these drivers are switching their medium tires for hards in lap 12.
Yeah, looking like we might have reached the point here, which indicates to me that Freddie is way more pace and actually could end up going faster than Cal here. Another thing to note is that Wildfury has about a 40% ERS advantage here, so he has a lot more to play with, and he's going to have his teammate ahead on the hard tire who should have more pace than the both of them to try and help drag him along and keep Freddie behind. And you know, we've seen from Klinsmann and Wildfury that they're always right there with each other, and they're very good about working as a team. And I think that that's a lot more valuable for them than people might realize.
Yeah, most definitely. We're already seeing Freddie Rizal fighting for Wildfury, but as you mentioned, Wildfury's got that advantage, that ERS advantage, as well as he's got the advantage for his teammate in front. So these Mercedes drivers are doing a great job by working together. It's working for them as much as for their personal championship as for the constructors. As I'm saying this, it's Wildfury that dives into the pit, so he's going to be the first of the Mercedes drivers, as expected, to go into the pits, probably trying to go on the undercut for Freddie Rizal, but Freddie's got such pace currently. Will that undercut work? So we're going to see that in the next lap, unless Freddie Rizal is also going to go into the pits.
Yeah, so I think what it's going to come down to is Freddie, he's going to have to push. He's going to want to get DRS here. That should help him cover off from the undercut here. Of course, Wildfury is going to be in clean air, which should help him. If Klinsmann can manage to prevent Freddie from getting DRS, which it looks like he might, that'd be a massive help to his teammate and try to make the undercut here. Freddie's probably going to be thinking about coming in this lap, especially if he doesn't manage to keep it in DRS, which it looks like he...
I don't think he's got it.
Going to manage now.
He's just a little off by a tenth there, and he's lost it. And Klinsmann's also used his ERS himself to get a gap. Freddie didn't get the best turn in on the back straight there, so he's problem. As you're saying, I think his car is showing signs that, or the tires are showing signs that they've given up on him a little bit. 12 laps on those medium tires. We're thinking about what, say, probably close to the 60-65% range.
I'm not really sure about this track. I mean, it's always possible. We see at some tracks where you want to come in with kind of 40% tire wear just because, you know, the hard tires can last that long. And it just gives you some better time. But they could be getting there. I'm honestly not sure. as Freddy comes into the pits as we predicted. So we're going to see now Wild Fury is probably going to hit that little bit last bit of pace. He wants to be hitting his battery more than he is here unless he thinks he's either to come out behind Freddy or is going to need to defend very hard. Looking at it now, I'm really not sure what's going to work. Freddy is just moving now out of his box as Wild Fury comes around the final corner. He is pushing his battery, so we're going to see who comes out ahead.
It's going to be a close one.
If Freddy gets the drive, he'll be on the inside. We're going to have to see. Freddy is just ahead. So just
ahead on cold tires, and Wild Fury is all over his back here, and he's going to try to make the move around the outside, and he does! Wild Fury in the Mercedes does great move, and Wild Freddy, his tires were still cold, and as he does that, he gets his penalty. We were talking about that earlier. The penalties is going to cost them dearly this race. And now Wild Fury, being maybe a little bit impatient, knowing that Freddy Rizal had the cold tires in front of him, maybe destabilize his car on Rondo's the first S's, corners 3 to 9, and that caused them a penalty. So far, that is advantage for Freddy Rizal. And who is going to gain it back again? Because look at him. He's got DRS down the street.
Yeah, I mean, I think a penalty is the last thing the Mercedes drivers needed. I mean, it's just not. They needed to keep those positions they kept in the race no matter what. What Wild Fury needs to be hoping for now is that basically every driver around him gets penalties. I think if he comes up to the back of Klinsmann again, they might even think about swapping drivers to try and give Wild Fury clean air and build a 3-second gap to whatever car is behind.
I'm going to cut you off here. There's a 4-way battle between Eric McNerney, Kushi, Labib, and Gibbs. Labib had a 2-car overtake and nearly lost it, and that's lost him a position for Gibbs, which he took back right after. So in the whole sectors of turns 12 to 17, these 4 cars were having quite the fight. And I believe is that Kushi that has gone in. Yeah, Kushi has gone into the pits. So that 4-car battle becomes the 3-way battle. Eric McNerney has got a gap there. So in the middle of the pack, these drivers are going side by side, and that's not over. Yeah, Gibbs is all over the rear of Labib. Labib's just doing his best, and he's got the time advantage currently because Gibbs has gone 14-lap old hards compared to the 8-lap olds of Labib. These drivers were giving us great driving in Sector 2.
Kushi coming in was very good for McNerney. That means the drivers behind him should not get DRS going on to the back straight here. With a yellow flag on turn 1, looks like Marino's retired.
Yeah, is that a retirement or a DNF? It looks. I'm gonna keep an eye on that. Oh, that's a DNF. It looks like potentially DNF. And anyways, he's parked across the road there. I'm actually shocked. There's no. Oh, he's not damaged. So he's driving. So I think his AI is taking it over. So he crashed, and I believe that's an Alta 4 for Marino there. And his AI is going to park it on the side of the road, and that's going to be it for the McLaren driver. So a rage quit for Marino. Unfortunately, he won't be getting points from that. Klinsmann in P2 is the next driver, the next Mercedes driver, 15 laps old, as well as its Shrine, the Alpine. Both drivers.
He had wing damage.
He had wing damage, indeed. And I didn't notice when that happened there. I didn't notice a flag or anything. But that means he loses a position to the Alpine driver and to Freddy Rizal, who's still behind Wild Fury in P5.
Yeah, this is the last thing the Mercedes team needed, actually. Their race is really starting to unravel here in possibly the worst way they could have imagined.
So these drivers are we're looking for points position. One driver got a 3-second penalty, so that's a P4 currently, but that would drop him down to P5 if the race would end right now. And the other one's got a damaged car. I think the only advantage there for Klinsmann is that he's going to be on medium, so he's going to have a pace advantage for the next 12 laps compared to the other racers. And
he did pit early. I'm not sure the mediums are going to be best going that long. We don't see anyone else around him pitting.
Most drivers, I have some drivers going in on lap 10, but lap 12, there's the late drivers, and Cole Cummins and P17 still on 13-lap old mediums. Maybe that's not the best strategy as well. Guess who's P2? Ethan Patel.
Well, it's definitely not a net P2. And I just had an idea for Mercedes here. looking at it, Freddy's pace here, they're not looking good. Take the gamble. Let Freddy go and see if he can't beat Cal.
That would be an interesting strategy, and I don't know if they've been holding him up so far. There's only about 11 laps to go. The gap to the leader so far between Freddy, who's now officially in P3 with some drivers in the pits, is 5.1. So a while ago we were looking at the different gaps, and that gap's closed down because Kyle Blevins is just pit for the medium tire. So the medium is it's Kyle that's going to be on the medium so far. So he's going to have the tire advantage on Freddy at that moment. I don't know if that's going to be something that's possible for Mercedes to wish for, but Freddy, he's on the podium step and he's looking ahead and he wants that P2. And once he's let go by Wildfury, I think Freddy's pace might allow him to catch up. I don't know if he'll be able to race Kyle, but he's definitely going to catch up to him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw Freddy was like 1/10 down following. The DRS has to be worth a lot here, so it might be about the same. I think he'd be a bit slower in the first couple laps, but as soon as those mediums start to lose a little bit of pace, I think those hard tires would give him the pace advantage.
Yeah, just earlier it was a 5.1, but Kyle had the cold medium tires, and so he's lost a bit of pace, and Freddy is caught up to 3.7 seconds. So that's about a second and a half advantage, which we would expect him to lose for two reasons. Mainly because he's fighting Wildfury despite having DRS, and Kyle, well, his tires are going to wake up, and they're going to become alive, and he's going to up his pace a little bit. So Ethan Patel has just pit for medium tires. That puts him in P8, right behind Labib in P7. And Labib's got that double penalty that's hurting him currently. So Ethan Patel is looking potentially P7 so far. Let's just look at other drivers who's got penalties. Actually, Labib's got a 9-second penalty, so he's spending more time off track than on track, seemingly. Eric McNerney's got a 3-second penalty, and Ethan Patel is not that far off of him. So that's something that's very possible that he'll be looking for. So we saw Ethan struggling on the hard tires. I believe he'll do a little bit better on the medium tires. It could be his driving style or the setup or whatnot. And that could allow him to maybe salvage his race a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it could not be. I think getting a bad start could actually really mess up your rhythm here. So maybe the pit stop will be a reset. But honestly, with where he is now and all the penalties, I think Mercedes is going to need a miracle here to win it.
Freddy again got really close to Wildfury there on the back straight, but that didn't really help him enough to overtake Wildfury. And Wildfury doesn't have Klinsmann with him to help keep Freddy away, so Mercedes won't be able to help each other. And there's a Sector 3 flag, and it's down in the main straight. It looked like just Cole Cummins or either Cole or Hokage. I believe it was Cole who had a little bit of a moment turning, going around turn 20. Cal just sets a 136.4 for the fastest lap there. So as we were saying earlier, Cal was going to begin getting a way better gap. Yeah, so Freddy Rizal is back at a 5.5 second gap to Cal. So I don't think Cal has to worry too much about the Aston Martin driver, who's currently really focused on that Mercedes driver. And he's probably playing the patient game, right? Both of these drivers have very similar tire strategies currently. And we know who's got slightly better pace. But Wildfury is going to be able to keep up with him because of that DRS. Now they're going to be lapping. That is Hokage and the Williams, who had an incident, doesn't seem to have taken any damage, and was given the blue flags, and he's respected them well to let the two drivers in front of them fight it off. So good for the Williams driver for following those blue flag rules.
Yeah, it's not something we see enough, so you do truly love to see it.
Freddy's down on the inside on Wildfury. He's going down on lap 12, on turn 12. Sorry, he's got the inside. Wildfury didn't do enough to defend from him, and that is it. So Freddy Rizal is now let loose in front of that Mercedes, unless the Mercedes could pull a miracle or do something, but clearly the pace was on the Aston Martin side, and we're going to see that gap being formed. So that is Freddy Rizal starting P16 up 14 positions, sitting now in P2. And if there's one thing where we are going to be able to look at and see is that Freddie Rizal, maybe, does he have the pace to try to catch up to Cal? I don't think he's got enough time to fully catch up to him or even race him. But maybe he's got something to prove there, and Freddie's definitely got something he wants to prove for the next season, for his next draft. I believe he is setting himself to be a very good Division 2 prospect. Another thing that's really worth noting, it's a very tight battle with Mercedes and Aston Martin in the combined constructors. All week in Aston Martin, the drivers are telling they want to beat Mercedes. Division 4 and Division X so far has been the upper hand for Aston Martin. And right now in Division 3, that might be something we're seeing again with Freddie Rizal. Despite Kaiser saying in P14, he might try to gain some positions into the end of the race. Freddie Rizal, quite a comeback so far. No doubt about it. I know there's 8 laps to go, but no doubt about it. The driver of the day tonight.
Oh,
Wildfury's trying.
He looked for it. It definitely means he still has some pace. So I think the DRS is probably the big deciding factor here.
Yeah, DRS and most probably the car setup too, right? That straight line is great. Such a long DRS zone and great opportunity to overtake. But if your car has so much downforce that your DRS kind of cancels out, that definitely doesn't help you. And yeah, Wildfury's got some pace the whole time so far. And he's gonna like to gain time again with the DRS out of the main straight here. So that's not a battle that'll be over so far. I think Freddie, once he got past the Mercedes,
Wildfury's real close.
Oh, he's all over him.
Outside.
This is gonna be a great battle.
Wildfury needs to just keep his nose in, which he can't do. I don't think he's gonna get it unless he can really go for a move here.
Doesn't look like it. So, and for Freddie, maybe it was a little bit too close on the turn 1 corner there, so these drivers want to be careful with those penalties. Let's not forget, Wildfury does have a 3-second penalty, so if you're Freddie, the last thing you want to do is give yourself a penalty and become on par to Wildfury, because even if Wildfury overtakes him and they end the race 2 and 3, or with Mercedes in P2, all Freddie's got to worry about is to be within that 3-second gap. And here's a long straight again. We're going to see a demonstration of how the DRS is powerful here. Freddie's not defending with ERS so far. Neither is Wildfury using his ERS, just using that straight line speed. And I think Freddie's going to let him.
Freddie's doing very well.
Oh, he's defending again, once again. So Wildfury doesn't keep enough pace on the outside and really gives it to Freddie once again. So he's going to have to try all over potentially next lap. And this is like a kind of sector where these drivers really try to study each other and how they're going to take into corners. That corner, we've seen Freddie do a couple overtakes, seemingly looking like he's going to go wide and then diving in and cutting it tight.
Yeah, I mean, Freddie knows that the outside line doesn't work here. The only time the outside line ever works is if you manage to keep your nose in and set up for the next corner. If you can't do that, you're not going to get the drive with the outside line.
That's outstanding driving for them so far. And once again, Wildfury is going to look maybe on the inside. Doesn't exactly have the pace of Freddie. And let's not forget in the back, we're starting to see Alpine and another Mercedes driver of Klinsmann having their own battle as well with, that's a back marker of the Williams there. But Shrine Klinsmann are fighting it off as well. So lap after lap, both Mercedes engaged in battles constantly. Wildfury trying to keep up with Freddie, and Klinsmann wanting to overtake at Shire. Freddie got a way better exit there on the turn 11. So these guys are really harvesting their ERS as much as possible, and Wildfury is going to try once again on the outside. Doesn't break quite late enough. He's going to try for maybe finding the inside there, but really just pacing himself. Doesn't really get the opportunity to fight for Freddie once again.
Yeah, interesting driving from Wildfury here. I'm really not sure what he can do to try and mitigate this penalty here, because I think even if he's ahead, he doesn't necessarily have the pace on the drivers behind him, so he just might kind of be screwed into P5 here. Unless someone else manages to pick up a penalty. Of course, we didn't notice this, but his teammate does as well.
Yeah, it looks like both Mercedes have got penalties as well. So a lot of drivers in that pack from, well, we got P3, P5, and P6 with penalties so far. And one driver who is happy to not have one and is hoping he doesn't get one until the end of the race, that's Ethan Patel. Those penalties could potentially... well, for sure, currently Ethan Patel is going to be P6 if he keeps it up. But if he ends up catching up to Klinsmann, for one reason or another, that'll definitely allow him to look at P5, which would really salvage a terrible start to the race he had, and a really terrible stint on the hards. He dropped down all the way down nearly to P10, and now he's just gained him back. But I was expecting him to gain maybe a little bit more positions or more pace on those medium tires.
But also, Ethan doesn't necessarily need it. At least when it comes to the constructors. They kind of have it in the bag right now. As Schrei lose position to Klinsmann.
Yeah, Klinsmann made a great overtake on the inside, braking late there. Used up a lot of ERS to do so, too.
As long as Schrei can keep it with him, and especially if Klinsmann can start building or closing that gap to Wild Fury, that's going to leave Schrei in a good position. So
it sure will.
Advantage of that DRS and cruise.
That's true. I'm wondering, could it be a strategy that Klinsmann slows its stride down and far enough that its stride is not able to overtake Wild Fury under penalty conditions?
It could be, but then you run the risk of Eric McNerney closing that gap enough to bring Ethan Patel into range, which I guess doesn't necessarily matter at this point. But then Klinsmann would be losing a position and making far less points than if both of them did. I think I'm not doing the math because I'm stupid, but
so if I were to ask you, I was just about to ask you to do the math. What is up with the constructors so far? Is it on the Red Bull side, or are we looking at Mercedes?
I won't do the math, but I'll tell you when Mercedes was running 2 and 3 with Cal in P1, they needed Ethan to finish in P9 or lower. Right now, the Mercedes are in 3 and 4, and Ethan's in P7. So it's pretty safe to say that Mercedes have it right now.
Okay, we could easily say that. Is it safe to say that Mercedes does have it, or that the Red Bull have it?
Red Bull.
The Red Bull. Oh yeah, so Red Bull. Okay, so Red Bull would win the constructors if the race ends as it is right now.
Yeah, and I mean they'd actually win even more now that Freddie's in. Sorry, he was in P2 when I said that. They did have a scrap, but he'll be fine as long as he didn't pick up any penalties. Yeah,
definitely. So far as Freddie, P2, Cal is ahead of everybody and a little bit out there. And that is that Kaiser, who's had a bit of a spin and lost a position to Dan and the other Alpine. So interesting phenomenon we're seeing here. So we're seeing one Alpine driver and one Aston Martin driver fighting in the top 5 while their teammates are at the bottom of the grid so far in P13 and P14, not having the best race so far.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. More importantly, Klinsmann has closed that gap to Wild Fury, so Schrei would be finishing with a podium as is, which would be a very good result for Alpine. Of course, the best looking team on the grid.
With 3 laps to go, what are these Mercedes drivers telling themselves? If Klinsmann gets to close that gap to Wild Fury, or potentially even overtake him, he's maybe got the better tires than Freddie, maybe. As both drivers, again, I think Wild Fury is trying to look at the outside, and he doesn't seem to have it on Freddie. He needs to get more pace. Or is Wild Fury just waiting it out? Is that what he's doing? He's going to wait for lap 28 on that straight, and he's going to dump that ERS. His only purpose is using that ERS to keep up with Freddie. He maybe might make a last lap lunge. And in USA and in COTA, it's that kind of track, right? A lot of times in multiple races I've had here in ZRL and COTA, drivers will wait till the last lap. I mean, I've done it myself. Wait till the last lap to make your final lunge for a final overtake. and then defend out in Sector 3. So that's maybe something we're looking at for Wild Fury. So maybe he's slowing himself down intentionally, and that's allowing his teammate to catch up as well.
Maybe, but it's a risk, and it doesn't really matter because they both have 3-second penalties. So, of course, finishing ahead on track is good if there's post-race penalties that come through, or they can contest their track limits. Although, from what we've seen, both of those are very unlikely. So, they're just kind of sitting there driving and hoping for a miracle, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. It's something they could play out in the next couple laps. Are they thinking of a strategy? Are they thinking of doing something about it? Or maybe not. Is it really just Freddie Rizal who's defending and keeping it out there?
What can they do about the penalties and Ethan being in P6?
Oh yeah. Well, with the penalties, that is what it's gonna be. But I think as drivers, despite penalties, you still drive for track position nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it could be last lap. It could just be when do you get the run, but I mean, either way. And it's very hard to guess here because, Austin has been known to be hard to follow. Of course, neither of us has really driven it racing the people in this league, so we're not sure how difficult it is.
Yeah, despite these cars being able to follow each other closer with their new design, I mean, it's still something that affects drivers, the dirty air, once you're driving behind, and especially in that Sector 1 with those really tight S's where you're doing a lot of sudden steering movements. And with these kind of cars, that's where you can get caught a little off guard, and that could be a source of multiple penalties from these drivers so far.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, which I've always found quite funny, is that following's actually harder in this game than it was in last year's game. They ended up modeling dirty air a lot better, just because it's a feature and something we've been thinking about with these cars. So it actually became a lot harder to stick behind other cars.
There is I saw yellow in Sector 1. That is Regraph. So we've seen Ferrari known to be having a lot better pace than that so far. And they're battling for out in the middle of the pack currently, and Regraph just had a moment and lost a couple positions to, I believe, Kushi and Gibbs. So Kushi moving up to
I think
P10.
We just saw Freddie and Wild Fury make some contact there, so that could be a penalty.
So yeah, once again, the drivers are still battling it out. Curious to see what was the intensity of the contact and how it happened. So if there's something to be reviewed, it will be reviewed by stewards later on. But so far, Freddie and Wild Fury keeping their positions as is. Klinsman's really following up closely, and with that final lap, so they're all starting lap 28. If you're Klinsman, do you go for it, or are you really letting your teammate battle it out with Freddie?
I think you just need to let your teammate battle it out. Of course, Freddie could pick up a penalty, and if it's 5 seconds, gives.
Well, there's another contact. Oh, and that's gonna allow Wild Fury to get ahead of Freddie. So Wild Fury did a bit of a move, and that's Klinsman who's trying to take an opportunity of that on Freddie Rizal.
Yeah, that was very similar to the move we saw before. Just the drivers coming together. Of course, the angle we get on camera is not good, but that's twice in 2 laps that they've come together at turn 1.
So Wild Fury is really upping the pressure, makes contact on the rear of Freddie for an overtake. So that's technically not really a legal overtake, but Freddie now that gives him the DRS advantage. So it could be a blessing in disguise for Freddie. Now, of course, as we mentioned earlier with the penalties, but he's going to go full throttle here with the ERS, with the DRS. Oh, he doesn't look like he's going to have the pace so far. So all he's got to do is keep it clean throughout Sector 3 behind Wild Fury, while Cal is going through turns 19 and 20. And that's going to be yet another win for Kyle Blevins in the Red Bull. P1 to finish off the season. And here he is. He's going to spin the car around a little bit in celebration. Freddie's now defending himself from Klinsman in the back there. Gotta be careful for that potential yellow flag caused by the Red Bull. And that's going to be it. So Freddie starting in P16, is going to finish in P2 ahead of both Mercedes, Wildfury, P3, It's Try in P4, Klinsman in P5. Eric Minardi's next to cross the line, but he's going to be dropping back with a 6-second penalty. So that's Ethan Patel in P6. We can officially say Red Bull wins both Constructors' Championship in Division 3, and Kyle is also champion in Red Bull. So that's Drivers and Constructors' Championship for Division 3 Red Bull. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if I don't think we're gonna see even with post-race penalties. I think the Mercedes might be to blame for one of those, in my very unofficial opinion.
Given that it's the last race of the season, I'm curious to see if those drivers really are going to be battling it out for those ones. But Freddie Rizal officially finishes ahead of those Mercedes. And so if you're Wildfire, you definitely want to be careful and not lose too many positions from a contact. So that is the season finale for Division 3, ladies and gents. Kyle Blevins wins the Circuit of the Americas Grand Prix. Freddie Rizal in P2, Wildfire in P3, It's Try in the Alpine. Another great drive from the Alpine driver, P4. Klinsman in P5. So Mercedes did a great job for them. Ethan Patel in P6, McNerney P7, Dickwell in the AlphaTauri. Great race from him, P8.
You know, at the back where Cole Cummins is giving us some donuts to celebrate.
And that looks like it's donuts right at the end of the corner, so that's something that might be addressed, actually. It is a celebration, but we had Barney Gortmier get some penalties for doing donuts in the middle of the track. So that's... I know a certain admin who is not a big fan of donuts. I think he prefers cake.
So, I know that was a joke.
Indeed.
But notice how I didn't laugh.
Indeed. I've noticed. I've taken notice.
Proud of yourself?
As a steward, I've taken note. Super proud of myself.
Okay. Every time I think he's finally gonna drive across the line.
Yeah, he's delaying the ending there, so I think he's just about doing it in reverse.
Reversing across the line is pretty baller.
So that is Cole the Troll. Driver of the day, Freddie Razzle. So our top three, Wildfury, Freddie, and Cal, will be following in an interview in just a minute here.
One moment, I'm gonna see if we can get...
Yeah, they are there in the waiting room already. So I'll let you bring them in and we'll start interviewing our drivers.
Yeah.
We'll start with Wildfury. Wildfury, welcome to the broadcaster's booth. Wow, an intense race on your part. Really tight racing with Freddie. Once he overtook you and you were trying to overtake him back, how difficult was that?
It was pretty difficult. I mean, I was trying it at the end of the long back straight every time and took a good line into it. Broke a little bit later than I did, and it was difficult. But yeah, I was saving my ERS for the last couple laps to try it then because I knew I was running a little bit lower downforce than him. But yeah, it was a great race by him. Congrats to Cal, congrats to Red Bull for winning the constructors. I went down to the wire this season, so looking forward to the next one.
Now, we saw in the beginning of the race, once the medium tires started to, we thought reach the crossover point, we saw you and Klinsman swap positions. Was that team play, or was that a legitimate overtake?
That was team play. I mean, we weren't in comms, but, you know, I knew he was catching me a couple tenths a lap, so figured we'd find a good spot to do it, and yeah, I just let him tow me around for a few laps before my pit stop.
Wildfury, it's season finale as it is. What are your hopes and maybe expectations for next season? Do you have personal goals you want to achieve, and how's it looking for you next season?
I'd like to finish in the top 3 of whatever division I'm racing in, probably Division 2. But just I want to have other than my personal goals, I want to win a constructors championship. So whichever team that is. I hope to bring them one. It was close with Red Bull this year, but I think we just fell a little bit short.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of team principals are listening to these interviews and already starting to take notes on which drivers they want to potentially draft coming up in, I believe, in 2 weeks, right? I think it's the Halloween weekend the draft is going to be held. Walter, congratulations on your P3, buddy. Have a good end of the season.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
All right, our second driver to come in, sub, if you would like. Freddie,
Rizal.
Freddie,
Oh, man.
P2. You started in P16 after quite a horrendous drive in the sprint race. It looks like it was all planned out. How did you make that happen? How did it go?
I was fuming in the sprint race. I got pushed off by Ethan, which made me get 5 seconds because I went off track, but I was still ahead. So the plan was to get that removed at the end of the race, but normally what I did, because I'm kind of, well, I'm not new to the wheel anymore, but like this season I turned off no TC, and whenever it was wet this season, I think it was only wet once in Australia, I turned on medium TC because but now
Because you're scared?
Yeah, but I turned no TC on and I took it like a man. So
That, you'd love to see it. So,
yeah, I know.
when can we
something- go on.
expect the P last to close to first YouTube video to be uploaded?
I didn't record it.
What?
I'm so
What?
gutted.
One job, Mr. Raz. It wasn't even to win. It was to record it.
Yeah, no, it's annoying, you know, because I felt like that was one of my best drives I've ever done, and honestly, it's a shame.
You
I
should
get taken
definitely
out by
save
that.
that race replay because you were flying out
Yeah.
there. You had a lot of camera time. I can tell you that. That's how it played out. You were overtaking left and right.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of overtakes, like you said, but there was some guy that was just in the waiting room, just absolute fuming over some people. So obviously you're not gonna catch that, but I feel like some people do need to start being more careful around others because, like, just I don't know. I feel like during that race, like people kept moving under braking, and it's so dangerous. And it's just like so annoying because if that ruins your race, then it's a really big blow. But this is about me, not them. So go on, keep the questions going.
Well, knowing myself as much as you do, the importance of Aston Martin wanting to finish ahead of Mercedes so far in the combined constructors, I know
Yeah.
it's been a subject of discussion all week. How was that part of, like, was that on your mind while you were racing? Is that what motivated you to do give us such a performance?
You need to repeat that question. I keep getting some guy messaging me. Go on, say
It's
that.
it's all good. So my question is, was the combined constructors battle between Aston Martin and Mercedes a motivation for you to give us such a drive?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we had one task and one task only from Joel, Aston Martin team and principal, saying just finish the race. Doesn't matter because we're currently leading. We're currently P3 in the combined. So all we want to do is finish, or just let every driver finish, as we had a really good Division 4 and Division X. So yeah, that's all I did. I tried to do as best as I can. Josh tried to do as best as he can. Obviously, not being the best season for him. Still struggling with like new like wheel logic or the car logic, stuff like that. But I'm sure he will bounce back next season. But yeah, the motivation definitely helped out a lot.
All right, thank you for that, sub. You have any questions for Freddie before we close it out?
Oh, I think Freddie covered it.
Awesome. Thank you for your answers, Freddie. We'll see you next season. We'll see what seat you're going to be in. I believe that's going to be in Division 2 most probably. How are you, just before you let us go, how are you looking forward to racing in Division 2? And taking probably my spot.
Well, obviously, I think don't
You
wanna,
have to say something nice about Ranger now. He asked you to.
I mean, no, I'll just say my point and then I'll come to Ranger in a sec. Um, just saying, I mean, it's been such a great season with Aston Martin. Like, this is my third season with them, and I've been here for 4 seasons. So I'm normally with Aston Martin, but yeah, it's been a great season. One of the best TPs I've ever been around. Definitely helped me improve. Definitely made my anger a little bit less when I get taken out on track. But yeah, it's been a great season, and hopefully D2 will be much more better season. How the draft looks like, because I don't know, it'll be interesting. But yeah, so what was the question about Ranger?
No, there's nothing about me. Don't worry about it. Thank you, Freddie, for the discussion and the answering your questions here. We'll see you next season in the Division 2. Congrats.
Yeah, cheers, thank you.
And now our race winner, Mr. Cal.
Yeah, Mr. Blevins. So welcome again to the booth, Cal. I think your seat's been warmed up enough for you. You've been here more than often enough.
I think I've only missed out on a podium once this season. I think I'm 11 for 12.
So far, first of all, that's a Red Bull Constructors Championship secured in the last race of the season. So congratulations for that. I think the points you've racked up definitely helped out immensely in that regards. In your part, you've already looking forward to this for a couple races now. What is next season gonna be like for Cal Blevins? What's coming up for you? Do you have any idea? Any objectives? What are you looking forward for?
I'll probably finish top 5 or 4 in D1.
Nothing less.
Nothing less. I know that I'm faster than the guys that are getting 5th, 6th, 7th. You know what I mean? Like I know that I can get that top 4, top 5 in the championship next season.
Right.
Especially if I practice more. Like, it's hard I don't get a ton of practice in some weekends. So, like, this is one of the weekends I got to practice a little bit, and you saw how that went. So.
Yeah, it seems doing Division 1, a lot of drivers also tend to say that kind of thing. Dago's a very good one where he'll say he just gets in 15 minutes before a race and takes the setup and nearly beats Hudson or something, beats him straight on. So are you really expecting... So you've been teammates this season with Hudson Poole, despite the fact that he's in Division 1. That's something that might not happen next season. So when you say practice and setups and stuff like that, do you have teammates helping you out with that, or are you doing that all on your own?
If they're online, we'll get together and look at each other's laps, work on it together. But I mean, another thing that not really a lot of people have talked about is I am having surgery on my arm Wednesday. So I might not be there for, like, the first couple races. I might not be up to speed, but I know by the end of the season I should be finishing top 5 every race. So that's another thing I thought would be interesting with the picks to see where I go.
Yeah, team principals would be looking into that. Good luck, by the way, for that surgery and speedy recovery to you.
Yeah, I hope it'll be all right.
Any questions for Mr. Blevins, Seb?
Well, I was gonna ask him what his plan to keep his arm safe was, but he kind of beat me to that one. So
I think I've got a
mean,
ski
good
trip
luck.
planned like 2 weeks
Oh.
after my surgery. So
Uh-oh.
I don't need 2 arms to ski.
Okay. Just to drive.
Yeah, so it's not like a bone surgery. I'm getting ligament work done, so it's not going to
Okay.
be like as nearly as bad as the last time I had it done.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I'm sure everything will be fine.
Yeah, you guys should talk to Ethan too, because he had a big part in the constructors today. There's a lot of work going on with him during the race too.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll take advantage of it, given the fact that it's the last race of the season. So we'll have a talk with Ethan, who's contributed to that championship win. So most definitely.
I do want to say though, BuzzGod is no longer the best D3.
You cut out for a second there. BuzzGod is no longer what?
The best D3 driver, the most dominant. I'm just letting them know that. I had more competition and more points. So suck me, BuzzGod.
All right, so the hostilities have been thrown.
We'll organize the 1v1. Don't worry.
Dude, it won't even be fair at this point. I've came up to his division a couple times this year and won. So, you know.
Yeah, definitely very dominant season on your part. I'm pretty sure many drivers are questioning what you're doing in Division 3, but we'll know at least you'll be in the right slot in the right division next season, and you'll actually have competition, and we'll see what you're actually made of at that point.
It was P16 in D2 the season before, so like I've just gotten better. You know what I mean? It's one of those things like.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for your time and answering our questions, Cal. Congratulations again, not only for the Drivers' Championship, but also for the Constructors' Championship that you clinched today. And we'll see you next season.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to bring in... Might as well bring in Ethan Patel. We got a couple minutes ahead of us.
Yeah.
The Technic Speedy, Ethan Patel. Welcome to the broadcaster's booth.
Thank you. It's been ages since I've been up here.
Most definitely. So, first of all, congratulations on clinching and helping clinch the Red Bulls Constructors Championship on the last race of the season. How does that one feel, knowing that you have a teammate that's been absolutely obliterating the competition, and you want to be doing your best to contribute?
I mean, it's definitely been a fun season. Kind of reminds me of my season 3 at Alpine, where we also won the constructors with John. But I mean, some races I've been there, some races I just haven't, and that's something I want to fix for next season, of course. Obviously, I should have had the win in Netherlands. That didn't go my way. I've only been on the podium one time, but I think I've done the job enough to where we won. Like today, I was told all I needed was a P8 and got the P6 finish, and Cal did his job. He's done all season. I think he's only missed out on one podium. So yeah, it's been an awesome season with Red Bull.
Yeah, most definitely. We saw you struggle a little bit on that race start during the main race, and the hard tires kind of hurt you a little bit during that. So, what was going through your mind during that moment? What was happening?
So I've just struggled with race starts. It's not even the hard tire necessarily. It's just every time I've struggled with them all season. Haven't been able to fix it. I've tried to do everything, and something I'm gonna definitely look at in the off season. But I was stressed out because I'm losing all these positions. We started with the front row lockout. It definitely didn't help that we had just done a wet race where your throttle feels way lighter than it does in a dry race, and I think that could be part of the problem. But it was just a bad race start, really stressful. But once I got a few laps in, I was able to lock in and secure the P6.
Thank you for that, Sab. Anything you want to ask our friend Patel?
Well, I just want to know, like, as soon as you were told, hey, you need to get a P8 here, did you feel a lot of pressure, or was that relieving?
It was pretty early on. It was relieving because I knew Labib ahead was on the wrong strategy. I'm also just naturally faster than him, I feel. And Eric, I was able to keep up with him. He was also on the wrong strategy, and then he also got the time penalties. So it was kind of just like a chill out. All you need to do is finish. That's why at the end, I don't know if y'all noticed, I didn't pass Eric. He was out at ERS. I was basically full on my battery. I just didn't want to risk anything.
Definitely. So a mature drive on your part, having a difficult start, but really catching on and being able to keep the positions there and really doing what you had to do to secure that championship. So congratulations once again, Ethan. Thank you for taking your time with us, and we'll see you again next season.
No problem. Thank you.
All right.
So Seb, we've got just about 2 minutes, you and I, to get ready for Division 2 that's going to happen 10 p.m. Eastern. So to everybody watching, stay live. This stream is not over. We've only raced Division 3. Division 2 is happening just in a moment. It's the season finale, so Division 2, a lot of things could happen there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people really want to come see the best Aston Martin driver and the 5th best Haas driver score 16th and 17th in D2.
Most definitely. And I'm gonna spoil a little bit. Division 2 is the last race of the season. I am racing this entirely in VR, so I was very curious to see how that experience is gonna be because it'll be my first race in VR.
So is that gonna improve your racecraft? Because it definitely needs it.
I can't see anything in VR, honestly.
okay.
So
You-
I'm gonna Lance Stroll everybody and not see anyone.
Remember when I was like, yeah, this track is feeling like Spa again, and remember what you did to me in Spa? Can we not do that again?
I'll think about it. I'll consider it.
No, please, please.
I'll do it in both the sprint and the actual race.
Oh god.
All right, buddy, we're gonna head off to Division 2. Thank you for sticking with us for this race. Congratulations again for Red Bull for the Constructors Championship as well as the drivers. That was your season finale in Coda. Up next, Division 2 season finale. Good night, everyone.